Good morning. I'm Jim Spencer. I'm with the Bluefield, West Virginia Economic Development Authority. And for the ones that's in person, we're sort of spacing out, and the speaker will take off the mask so that you can hear what's being presented. And we're still in sort of COVID guidelines. It seems like that, when COVID first started in March of 2020, it's still here, and don't know exactly what's going to happen. But we're glad to have just a couple folks here today, and we've got a few online. We do this class typically twice a year, and Harold Patterson is a good friend, and he is a business coach with the Small Business Development Center. The bulk of the program is his. And at the end, we've got folks from Region 1 Planning Development Council that will be talking about microloans. You can have the best idea in the world, but if you don't have access to capital, it's going to be hard to move it forward. So something we're going to do a little bit different today. How's your down button on yours? Where's the pointer? Now hit it. Okay. And again, I'm Jim Spencer. Harold Patterson will be coming up next. Choose the down arrow. What'd you use? Yeah. Something that's different. A friend of mine, Jim Flowers, taught the first entrepreneurial class we had in Bluefield in 2016. And we had 27 folks at that. And this is the material that he used. And he ran the VT Knowledge Works program from Virginia Tech. And so this thing here that you see is something that I took from that, borrowing from my friend Jim Flowers. So as we think about you as an entrepreneur and moving forward and what Harold's going to talk about, a couple of things I want to sort of get you to think about first. Number one is time. One of the best classes that we teach that I enjoy myself, because I could use it, is time management. We try to do that twice a year. Professor David Height at Bluefield College does an outstanding job. And I don't care, there's twice a year at least, or twice, that I'm even with Bill Gates. He could buy me 1 million times, but we're even on 24/7, and my vote in November counts the same as his. So we're even at least twice. But a lot of times it's what do we do with that time? So number one, as you see here, can I devote enough time to succeed? When you're starting a business, there's a gentleman I was working with a couple of years ago. I finally asked him, I said, is this a hobby or is this really a business? And there's a fundamental difference. If it's a hobby and you're trying to make sideline money, a sideline hustle, some call it, that's one thing. But if it's really a true business, do you have time to succeed? Number two, will I devote enough time to succeed? Because a lot of times it's going to take longer and it's harder than you think. How do I feel about working nights and weekends? There's some people that think that they're going to start a business and in 2 weeks they're buying a condo at Myrtle Beach. It does not work out that way. If it does, then we need to be talking to that person. And then when you think about the pre-launch preparation and all those things, the actual startup is likely to require more than full time. It's going to take a lot of effort. Ongoing operations should be designed for normal hours. But when you get into effort, am I ready and able to work hard enough to make this happen? Do I have the staying power that is required? A lot of times when you're an entrepreneur, you'll hit the wall and you've got to be able to adapt. And everybody that it works in that, they call it the grind. It is an uphill battle, and there's certain plateaus you get to, and it may be that you feel like you're not making progress, but you got to persevere and keep going through. Jim Flowers outlines that nothing goes according to plan. I've got a cartoon about economic development, and it talks about your economic development plan needs to be flexible. So even if you think that your business plan is going in this direction, you need to be able to look at it from a 360-degree approach, and you may have to adapt and adjust. Because Jim Flowers also has the best definition of an entrepreneur that I've ever heard. 7 words: solve people's problems for profit and fun. DoorDash, other things like that. Even my cell phone case that I've laid here somewhere, those things are important, and they're solving a problem, and hopefully they're profiting from that. It goes on that the only thing harder to do in life is parenting American teenagers. And that's an interesting concept. I have 4 kids, 24 to 16, so I can understand that. That's a 24/7 job. I never drank coffee till I became a dad. It will take longer than you believe possible. And you say, Jim, are you trying to discourage us or encourage us? No, I'm trying to be honest with you, to let you know, and you need to work through that. Have a team of mentors that can help you. There are people in my life, even at my age, that if I hit the wall on something, I will call them and they can help me charge my battery. David Height is one of those folks. Harold is another. So you've got to have some resources available that can help you through those times. Anxiety. Am I or we good at dealing with uncertainty. To be an entrepreneur, I know a gentleman, he's one of our graduates, Colin O'Donnell, good guy, like him, at the Grind restaurants, good business. And I remember him telling a story that he sold his Jeep to help fund his business. Are you willing to do that? Now, a lot of people come in and they're looking for other people's money to start the business because they don't want any risk or skin in the game. It usually does not work that way. You're going to have to assume some risk, and you need to be to evaluate that risk. This is not for the faint at heart. Rule number one, the boss cannot freak out, because if the boss freaks out, guess what? That's contagious. Also, number two, the spouse or partner cannot freak out. If you're married, this is a joint endeavor and things like that. Failure. If you think about failure, what is the worst that could happen to me? It could happen and it won't be pretty. Don't plan on it, but don't let yourself be caught unprepared. And there's some things that I think you can do with that. Matter of fact, I believe in a 360-degree approach. You look at it from every angle, positive, negatives, things like that. And I like the carpenter's rule. You measure twice, you cut once. What are the things that I cannot afford to lose? No business is worth sacrificing your health, or sacrificing your integrity, or sacrificing your family. And how much money can I risk? You need to set a limit and observe it. And how much lifetime can I risk? Set a limit and observe it. Those are from Jim Flowers. I think they're good things this morning to have in the back of your mind as you try to move forward. So this morning, I'm ready to turn over to Harold Patterson, my friend, who's a business coach, again, I told you, with the Small Business Development Center, and start walking you through some concepts and things that you need to be aware of that can help you as you put your business plan together. Harold?
Thank you, Jim. Extremely good advice for everybody that's thinking about going into business or expanding your business. As Jim said, I am Harold Patterson. I'm with the West Virginia Small Business Development Centers. I cover Mercer County, Wyoming County, McDowell County, and Raleigh County at the moment. That tends to change from time to time. But what we're trying to do here is to give you some steps. If you're trying to go into business, we're going to give you some steps that you need to think about and make some decisions on, and it'll make your venture a whole lot easier. First step we're going to talk about is choosing a business name. Make sure it's available. Now you ask yourself, how is this possible that I can actually check to see if it's available? There are a few avenues that you can use. Social media, Google it, find out if anybody else is using that name. You can't use McDonald's. They'll come after you real quick. They'll send you a letter of cease and desist. You can't even use their trademarks. The big M, you can't use that. So you need to research these things before you even start trying to decide what you're going to do. West Virginia Secretary of State's office, if you go to their website, they have a search engine that will allow you to see if anybody in the state of West Virginia is actually using that name. So there are a few ways to do that. And like I said, keep trademarks in mind. Make sure that what you're thinking about is legal and that you're not copying somebody else. Second thing is, what's your business address going to be? Are you going to be from home? Is it wise to use your home address and let other people know where you live? There are times when you can actually rent space from a person like Jim, who will let you come to his place here and have meetings. He's going to set up rooms that would be available for you to meet your prospective clients and others like that. The other thing is looking professional, presenting a professional image. Sometimes using your home would not present the professional image that you would want to project to someone you're trying to make a client. Your mailing address. Would you want to use your home address for your mailing address? Same situations. You have all those different concerns for using your mailing address. It would be a whole lot easier just to go over to the UPS store and get an address over there and have your mail sent there. You just have to check it out periodically. Jim also has a makerspace, and he's developed that down at the commercialization station. Do you want to put your microphone on and talk about that for a second?
The makerspace is actually operated by CREA, C-R-E-A company. Travis Lowe and Robbie Gaines, they have different members that you can join and make different things. There's people that are making signs and other things there. And you can join and become a member. I think it's $60 a month. And then you can make things and as a sideline, or it could grow into a full-time business. But it's located at 1642 Bluefield Avenue in Bay 5 of the commercialization station.
I have visited down there. Jim's taken me down there several times, and it's amazing the machines and things that they have down there. He has 3D printers, laser cutters, and things like that. Lots of things are being made down there. So if it's something that you could utilize to get your business started, it's a pretty good adventure. It's not real expensive to rent that space and create the things you need to create. Email addresses. One of the things you really need to think about is your image when you're putting together all these things. Like I said, the business address, whether you're using a UPS store. Another thing to consider is your email address. You want your email address to reflect you as a person, you as a business, your professional, your integrity, all of that things. I have seen email addresses that are Harley Rider 1943 or whatever, and those don't really project a professional image that you're really trying to put out to the public. You want the public to have confidence in you, and actually everything that you do, everything that's in your business, they look at and judge you by it. Your email address does cut down on your calls. You direct them to the email, and make sure that you check it regularly. Do not let this thing go past a day or two before you check your email. And if you're taking orders online, then you need to check that thing every day and possibly several times during the day. Okay, getting a phone number. Do you use a landline? Do you use a cell line? Do you need an answering service? These questions you have to answer for yourself. If you're okay with the landline, that's fine. Most people now are opting for the cell phones. They're not putting in as many landlines as they used to. The cell phone needs to be a business phone only. You don't really need to use your personal phone. I know some people do. A lot of my clients have done that, but you need to be able to cut the business phone off at times at night and go to sleep. Okay, because you do need some rest. You can't be on there 24/7. Your personal phone, you can't really cut it off most of the time. So I suggest if you're going to go the cell phone route, that you actually get two lines or two different phones, one for business, one for personal. I'm going through this pretty fast because we got some other people that are going to talk later. So if there's any questions, shoot them to the inbox. And if there's any questions here, just raise your hand and we'll see if I can answer them. Okay, one of the biggest questions that I get personally is, what do I need to be? Do I need to be a sole proprietor? Do I need a partnership? Do I need an LLC? Do I need an S corporation? And my answer is, depends. Depends on your tax situation. It depends on your liability situation. It depends on a number of things before we can answer those questions. I have given everybody a handout here, and I'll send it to you online. The differences of sole proprietors, partnerships, LLCs, and S corps. And like I said, it really depends, and it really comes down to your personal situation as to which one you choose. With a sole proprietor, you are the business. The business is you. You can't separate you. If I were to go into business as a sole proprietor, the business name would actually be Harold Patterson, doing business as Harold Incorporated. So you can't separate me from that business. I'm responsible for all the assets. I'm responsible for all the liabilities. Everything falls into my lap. My home, my car, my retirement fund, my kids' college fund, everything that I have, everything that I own is tied up in that business, as well as the business assets are tied up in me personally. Partnerships, I don't get a lot of those anymore, mostly because of LLCs. They've kind of swallowed them up. Partnerships are just a group, two or more individuals doing business in an agreement. You have an agreement among you as to how everybody interacts in the company. That's a real brief statement. You're all sole proprietors. You all own a certain percentage of the business, but you're all tied up in that agreement to become a whole business. With an LLC, which got developed a few years ago, it gives you some of the protections of a corporation liability-wise, and it would allow you to choose tax-wise to be taxed as sole proprietors, or you could choose the corporation tax inside the LLC. Most of these things that I deal with are member managed, which means everybody owns a certain percentage of the corporation, but there is a member who does the day-to-day management of this corporation. Like I said, it does give you some liability protections of the corporation, and it does give you some tax breaks on whether or not to be taxed as a sole proprietor. S corporation basically is a solid corporation. It does not mean small. S is a designation by the IRS, not small. There is stock issued. There's a board of directors. There's bylaws. There's articles of incorporation. This is a bona fide corporation. It has minutes. It has an annual meeting, and you have to file those with the Secretary of State. It gives you all the liabilities afforded under law, and it also allows you to choose your taxation as either sole proprietorship or corporation also in this pass-through company here. Those are just a brief rundown of what the corporations and the incorporations are. We can go into this more detail. I can talk to you at length about your individual choices, what you would like to choose. It really just depends on the situation as to which one you should go be incorporated as. One way that you can get some help is the Secretary of State's office has developed in their website the BizWiz, and it allows you to answer some questions, and it will tell you within a certain percentage as to what you should be, either an LLC, an S Corp, partnership, sole proprietorship. It doesn't deal with C Corps. It doesn't deal with those types of corporations, but it can help you make decisions. During the incorporation process, one of the things that I get asked a lot is for an NAICS code. Everybody freaks out because they don't know what it is. And it's kind of hard to actually find if you don't know what you're looking for. But I've given you a couple of different websites you can go on and you can look for those numbers. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, call me. And after I talk to you about what your business is, then I can go find an NAICS code for you. It's a 5-digit code. And when you're doing your incorporation through the state of West Virginia, they're going to ask you for your primary and sometimes your secondary codes. One of the things we'll talk about here in a second is governmental contracting. And your NAICS code becomes very important in governmental contracting because it defines your business and lets the government know what type of products and services that you're actually offering. Any questions on that? I went through it kind of fast, but there'll be time for questions or whatever at the end of it. Okay, the next thing is a DUNS number. Most people do not understand that just getting incorporated isn't enough. You have to have certain other numbers. A DUNS number is one of those things that you need to do. It's from Dun and Bradstreet. And basically what it is it tells everybody else how good of a incorporation you are. We as people, we as individuals, we have credit scores. When you go to a bank, when you go to buy a car, when you go other places to get financing, they will get your credit score. And that tells them, or they think it tells them what kind of a person that you are. This tells everybody what type of a business credit that you're been able to achieve. It doesn't tell the whole story, but it gives them a pretty broad picture on what type of a business you are and how you've interacted with other companies. I know Jim and other individuals like Jim in the economic development field, when a company comes to him and says, hey, I want to relocate, one of the first things that he's going to do is pull up the DUNS report and find out how this company has been interacting in the last few years. Okay. As far as governmental contracting is concerned, the DUNS number is going to be phased out and is being phased out. It would have been already done because of COVID. They've kept it around. But one of the things that you're going to have to do, especially if you want to do governmental contracting, is you're going to have to get a SAMS number. And I listed the address at the bottom, https://sam.gov. And you can go on there and answer the questions that they have and actually get a SAM number if you want to do governmental contracting. Locally, I send everybody to the Regional Contracting Assistance Center at Concord University. They're headquartered in Charleston. They have their office there. The regional office is there at Concord. And Mary Hedrick is the procurement officer. She's very good. I've worked with her in the past, and I highly recommend Mary. And I've listed her information at the bottom of the slide there. We can send these slides out, right, Faith? We can send them out to you at the end of the presentation. How am I doing on time? Okay. Okay, one of the first steps that I always tell everybody to do is go to the irs.gov and get an employer identification number, an EIN number. And if you go to the IRS, all you have to do is put it in the search engine, EIN, and it'll take you to the page where this can happen. This is very quick. It takes about 5 minutes. It's not very painful. You're going to need to know what name you want to be listed under, and also whether or not you're going to be the sole proprietor, partnership, corporation, or some type of nonprofit. It's not going to list an LLC. LLCs are not recognized by the IRS. That's a state designation. And each state has different rules for incorporating your LLC. So if you go to the IRS and you've decided you want to be an LLC, you just list yourself there as a corporation. Any questions? And I've given you the address at the bottom there. It's kind of a long thing. Like I said, all you really need to do is go to the irs.gov and then type in the search engine EIN, and it'll take you there. One of the things that we strongly recommend is that you do not use your Social Security number for your EIN number. Your EIN number is basically just a tax identification number. So if you're going to other businesses and they ask you for your tax number and you give them your Social Security number, If they get hacked, your social security number's out there and you've created yourself a lot of trouble. So we strongly recommend that you let the IRS generate, even if you're going to be a sole proprietor, generate this EIN number for you. Okay. Okay. I'm going to attempt to go offline for this one, or go online for this one, and pull up the West Virginia Secretary of State's website. That way you can see a little bit better. But they do have something called a business startup wizard. And like I said before, it helps you decide what type of incorporation that you want. So bear with me for just a second. Yeah, it's giving me state tax. Here it is. Okay. Okay, can everybody see the screen? Everybody's fine? Okay. This is the actual website for the West Virginia Secretary of State's office. And like in the right here, business organization search, I've got it highlighted there. That's where you would actually go and check to see if the business name is being used. Now, what I would suggest is put in the least amount possible. Okay. If, for instance, I was going to name my company McDowell Contracting, because that's where I'm from McDowell County. So I would actually suggest you just put in McDowell and then do a search. And it tells me that there's 173 people using the word McDowell, but you get to see all of those. Okay. Is it up yet? Okay. It says that there's 173 different companies using the name McDowell inside their name. But this gives you a list of all of the different companies. So you can go through and see, is my name available? Okay. So that's one of the steps I told you about. And where did they put it? Underneath, is it back to the original? Okay. Underneath popular resources, you have West Virginia OneStop. We're going to click on that. This is the OneStop Portal. If you're comfortable with incorporating yourself online, if you're comfortable with answering the questions, or if you have a CPA or an attorney that's going to do your incorporation for you, they can actually come here and it'll take about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how fast you are. And you can actually incorporate yourself online in the state of West Virginia. At the login situation, you already have an account, sign up, guest annual reporting. The sign up would be where you start yourself a file. You do not have to do this in one setting. You can actually save it, come back out if you have questions, talk to people like myself, talk to a CPA, talk to an attorney, talk to somebody knowledgeable in the question that you have, and be able to go back in, answer the question, and keep moving. Once you are incorporated, down here on the bottom of that, guest annual filing report, you have to file your annual reports. And basically, it just upgrades who the officers are in the incorporation, what their addresses are, and what's their phone numbers and things like that. So you update that type of information and pay the state $25. If you don't, and they suspend your corporation, it's $100 to get it back in good standing. So make sure you file the annual filing report. It should be in the month of your incorporation or before July of that year, July 1st of that year. Okay, now the reason we came here under quick links is the business startup wizard. I'm gonna click on that. Are they there? Okay. And this is the opening question. Do you want to form a new West Virginia company or register your existing foreign company? A foreign company does not mean out of country. It could just mean you're over in Virginia. You're incorporated in Virginia and you want to do business in West Virginia. So you file a foreign domestic corporation in the state of West Virginia. So that's basically what that is asking. Let's form a new one. We're there. Okay. What's the infrastructure of your business going to be? What's the structure of your business going to be? And it gives you a bunch of different type of incorporations. I did not talk about benefits corporation. It's a hybrid of a nonprofit and a for-profit company. There's ways of doing that. It needs a lawyer if you're going to do that. Do not attempt it on your own. I don't even suggest really a CPA. I'm sure there's people out there that can do it, but I'd feel more comfortable with an attorney putting together your benefit corporation. PLLCs, like it says, is professionals. That's usually for doctors, accountants, different people like that. Limited partnerships, you've got all these to choose from, okay? So let's just say that we're going to do maybe a sole proprietorship. It's going to ask me the county. Not sure yet. I may want to come to Mercer County, be up here. Have you gotten an EIN number? Let's say no. Are you sure you're going to have employees? Yeah, we're going to have employees. And then you come here. And you can see the different things that they're giving you to check. So it's going to help you in your decision on, you know, what you want to do, your business startup wizard. Any questions on that? Takes you about 5-10 minutes. And like I said, it gives you a report at the end that says 85% chance that you don't really need to be a sole proprietorship. You may need to be an LLC.
Harold, you may want to mention to folks who can't hear me online that we have had businesses come in that set themselves up to be sole proprietor, and then they want to change later on, and it makes it a bit tougher to go back and unring the bell.
The back button here. The very top.
Which one?
Very top on the orange part.
Uh-huh.
It's like right above design.
Oh. Okay. Oops. What Jim was talking about is, let's say you've chosen to be a sole proprietorship, and then you found out that that wasn't right for you, that a sole proprietorship is not really what you need to be. You need to be incorporated. You can do that. You can change, but most of the time, what we recommend is just end one of them and start a new one. A lot of times we just, it's too much hassle to try to change from one type of incorporation to another. So at the end of the calendar year, which is most of the tax seasons for everybody, we just say, end your old one, start your new one. Now, if you can't do that, there are ways of doing it. You can switch from one type of corporation to another one time, but it's kind of easier most of the time if you just end one, start the other one. And we also looked at the OneStop Portal there. Again, if you're comfortable with this, fine. You can answer the questions. You can pay your fees online. And at the end of it, download everything, print it, and that would be your temporary license until the state actually sends your regular license. One of the things I'll also talk about here is make sure that you have registered with the tax department to get your tax number. People have gone through, Jim and I have experienced this, and some other people have too. People have gone through Zoom and they have incorporated through Zoom, and I'm not disparaging that company at all. They're a good company, but in the state of West Virginia, they have not followed through with registering the companies at the tax department. And these people have been doing business thinking that they're okay, and they don't have a tax number. They don't have a tax ID number. So make sure that your business is registered with the state tax department, even if you go through the OneStop Portal. Okay, there are also city licenses that you need to be aware of. I've listed a few. In Mercer County, you have 5 different cities. If you're doing business within those incorporated limits, you need to go to City Hall and get a business license. And in Mercer County, in Bluefield, it's $25, Jim. Faith? 20 for the city. Okay, $20 for the city. We're not talking a great deal of money. I didn't mention it with the state. Sole proprietors are $30 a year, and most of your corporations are $150 a year. Now, those are prorated. So your year starts July 1st. We've already went through the first quarter. So 33% or 30% of it would get, or 25% of it would get knocked off of the price. So it's not going to be 150, it'll be 25% less. In McDowell County, you have 10 cities, God help them, that you would need to check on if you're doing business over there. And in Wyoming County, you have 3 cities. Those are just the ones that I picked out, counties that I picked out. Now, one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, if I'm in a food truck business, or if I'm not really, don't have a permanent stand at a, in a city, do I still need a city license? And I tell everybody yes. If you're in a food truck or you're in something that just sells periodically, then yes, get a city license if you're going to sell in that city. If you're going to a fair or something like that, then make sure the fair has contacted with the incorporation and the fees are being paid through the fair. If not, get a city license just to be on the safe side. Because if the cops show up and say, show me your license, you can pull it out and you're good to go. What about if you're selling on the internet? If I'm here in Bluefield at my home and I'm doing drop shipping, selling on the internet, do I really need a city license?
Business address. It's based on business address.
Get a city license. Don't play with it. Just go ahead and get it. It's 20 bucks. I know they're going to ask you for B&O tax, but it's 20 bucks. So don't play with it, and get your license and be legal. That way, if they ever show up, yes, and yes, I am paying B&O tax. If you want to find out if there's federal licenses or permits, that is the website that you need to go to and see if there's federal licenses required for your venture. West Virginia licenses and permits. Are there health permits? You got to go to the county health department. Like I mentioned, food trucks, those things need to get checked out. Restaurants need to get checked out. Beauty shops, barber shops, all those kinds of things need to go through the health department to get checked out. Daycare centers, DHHR, those types of people. Contractor's license, you can find them at the West Virginia Department of Labor. And I've listed a few different types of contracting license that you would need: electrical, plumbing, HVAC, any type of residential building, commercial building needs to have a contract, and crane operators also needs to be licensed. There are other various professional, and I've listed those: accountants, cosmetologists, landscapers, massage therapists, and a whole lot more. But they're all listed right there in the website for the West Virginia licenses at Department of Labor. Okay, one of the other things we talk about quite frequently is make sure when you get your business license and you think you're ready to go into business, make sure you open up a bank account for the business itself. Do not try to run the business out of your personal bank account. That is even if you're sole proprietor, it doesn't matter. Get it separate. Whatever you're going to do business-wise, have a separate account. I've had several people tell me that their books were messed up. Can I help them? And I'll tell them to come in, bring all their paperwork, and they'll come in and throw a checkbook up on the desk, and it's their personal checkbook. And that's a nightmare to try to figure out. From the very beginning, separate it, okay? Separate it. Keep a separate business and personal account. You'll thank yourself if the IRS ever audits you. Likewise, purchases. If you go to Sam's to purchase stuff for the business and you see several personal items there, oh, I'll just lump it all on the same ticket. Do not do that. Separate your orders. Keep your business and your personal separate. Okay, another thing you need to possibly think about is contacting the local utility companies. Do you have a PSD in your area? Is it a city water type thing, city sewer? Who is actually operating those types of things, the water and the sewer in your location? Sometimes one company will run the water and another company will actually run the sewer. So make sure you find out who's doing what. Who's picking up your solid waste? Who's picking up the garbage every Monday, Tuesday, whenever they pick it up? Okay, where do those fees get paid to? Most everybody in this area owes their life to AEP, and hate to tell you, they're asking for another raise. They just got two about 3 weeks ago. But anyway, check with the electric company. Are there any deposits that you need to make to get the electric service turned on? And if you're able to use gas, who's running the gas in your area? Are there any specifications that they have? Do they need to come in and check? Are there any deposits? Things like that. Telephone, we talked about that before. Who's got the telephone in your area? Sometimes there's 2 or 3 different companies who's giving you the best deal. Check out all of those types of things and then make your decision on what type of phone that you want. Again, deposits, make sure that you ask if there are any deposits. Okay. I'm going pretty fast. When contacting an accountant, when contacting somebody who's going to do your books, take your time. Don't do it in a rush. Don't basically just say that person's available and they can do it. It's your business. It's your money. You need to know what those papers that they shove at you actually says. If they shove a profit and loss at you, can you read it? If they shove an income statement at you, can you read it? A balance sheet, can you read any of that? Do you know what it says? Do you know what it tells you? If you don't, find somebody who's going to talk to you. Find somebody who's going to work with you, answer your questions, teach you. This is what your profit and loss statement means. This is what your income statement means. This is what your balance sheet means. Find out what those cash flow statements are. Okay? We're not asking you, or I'm not asking you right now to figure out the ratios and how long your inventory is sitting on the shelf or your accounts receivable or anything like that. What I'm saying is get them to teach you what these things are telling you, not just the bottom line. Your bottom line, you may have money in the bank, but in all honesty, you're going broke. And you just don't, you're not able to read the statement and tell that, okay? Get yourself to the point that your bookkeeper or your accountant can show you these things and you can look at it and say, okay, I'm in a good place, or no, I'm in a bad place, or I'm heading to a bad place. So talk to them, communicate with them, make sure that they will take the time to actually tell you these things. Because if you don't, it's your money. You could be out of business. They're still going to be in business. They'll go on to the next client. Jim?
We use this example. This happened to me a couple of years ago. I owned some rental property and things like that. And my CPA made a $4,000 mistake on my taxes. And so rather than just signing what they gave me, I said, that can't be right. I track my own finances and use a CPA because I'm not. But I went back and found the error and got it corrected, saved myself $4,000 and some dollars. However, I did change CPAs the next year because I'm not paying for that kind of error. So trust, but verify. It's your business. You need to understand your finances and where the money's going and understand your taxes. Don't just sign off on something that somebody gives you.
I've been doing this job now for almost 22 years. And I've run into a lot of things. One of the things that happened to me was a client of mine handed me a profit and loss sheet. And he asked me, it was spread out over a year so I could see the individual months. And he asked me, he says, what can you tell me by looking at this sheet? And I took about 10 minutes, I guess, and looked at it. And then I finally looked at him and said, you've got an employee stealing from you. And he says, I knew it, but how can you tell by looking at this sheet? And what I said was, your income is dipping, which means your sales are going down. Your inventory has actually risen. So if there's a huge spike in the amount that you're paying for your inventory, then I could justify that. But at that time, it's back early 2000s. At the time, things were pretty steady, and there wasn't a huge spike in what he was buying, his groceries and his inventory and stuff. So I said, you've either got a lot of inventory setting somewhere on a shelf or in a freezer, or somebody's stealing it. It's gone. Somebody's got it. Anyway, long story short, he put some cameras up And he had this guy that was actually unloading his food truck. When the food truck would come in, he would order 6 whole ribeyes. 5 of them would make it to the freezer. 1 ribeye would make it to the back of the guy's car, and then he would go downtown and sell it. So then we got to discussing what was he actually losing with the ribeye, losing that 1 whole ribeye. The price he paid for it, plus the future sales of it. So he was losing a lot more than what he was actually showing up on paper, because he never got to realize the future sales of that ribeye. So these things can tell you things, and you learn tricks as you go along. And that's why I say, make sure somebody's willing to sit down and talk to you. And then you keep developing your own skills, like Jim. Jim noticed it, talked to his CPA, had him correct it, and then found one who will work with him. Any questions on this? Yes. Yeah, we're gonna stop here for a little bit. We're gonna come back at 12:15. That's 20 minutes, 12:15. We'll come back at 12:15 and then we'll finish this up. I'm almost done, and then after that, we're gonna put Region 1 on, and they're gonna tell you about their programs. So see you in about 20 minutes. Yeah, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat box, and we'll try to answer them. Hey guys, hope everybody's back. Step 9, same as the other things we've talked about in separation. Separate your business credit cards from your personal credit cards. Again, it just makes it easier at tax time. Makes it easier if you ever get audited. Do not try to mix your personal with your business, is all what we're saying there. With your suppliers, a lot of times you can negotiate. You don't need to pay them everything immediately. Sometimes you can do a net 10, which gives you 10 days to pay them. If you've got very good credit, and they'll check your DUNS number, or they'll check your DUNS report rather, they'll give you a net 30, which means you have 30 days to pay them in full before they start giving you an interest rate. And make sure that your suppliers report to the credit bureaus, which builds up your credit report, gives you a good report. Creating a website. A lot of people don't think about it. They think they have a nephew or a niece or somebody, a distant cousin, that will be able to create them a website. We suggest getting an actual company that does this for a living to create you a website. And basically, I just gave you 10 suggestions here on what you need to do, or how your website needs to look. Clear, concise, a description of who you are, where you are, and how to contact you is probably some of the biggest things that irritate me when I go to a website. Who is this company? What do they do? How do I contact them? I'll pick on the state of West Virginia. I think they have some of the worst areas of contacting them that I've ever seen. It's hard when you go on their websites to say, okay, who do I contact inside this organization for my question? Or even how do I contact the whole organization? Sometimes it's just very hard to find. So make sure it's easy for them to find about contacting you. Make sure the forms are simple, fill in the blank, that type of thing, and make sure you respond to them in a timely fashion. Okay. If you are in business and you want people to notice you, then you need to have search engine optimization. Make sure that the person who puts this together does that for you. One of the businesses here in Bluefield that I've actually worked with, Patty Joe's out on Cumberland Road. have said that a lot of people find them off of 77 because of the way they've positioned themselves on the internet. People will be searching around looking for local restaurants, and they come up as a very high recommendation on the search engine. So there's a lot of things that goes into that. And again, we highly suggest you get someone who is a professional to do this for you. Now, one of the things that we have developed here at the West Virginia Small Business Development Center is something we call an SME program, subject matter expert program. And we have gathered several companies from around the state that do things like bookkeeping, that do things like web design, that do things like cybersecurity. Jim actually had one of our cybersecurity guys put on a workshop, well, actually it was 2 workshops about your business and cybersecurity. Very revealing. Jim and his staff said that they learned things by listening to the gentleman. Anyway, this would be free to clients of ours. If you sign up and you need a website design, we do have some monies out there that can help you do that. We'll get you signed up, we'll submit the paperwork, and then get a website design for you. If you need cybersecurity, if you need someone to talk to you about your business and analyze the business for you, we have that. We do have some bookkeepers. We have a couple of CPAs. If you're trying to sell your business and you really don't know how much the business is worth, we have a CPA that could take your information, taxes, things like that, and kind of put a price tag on it for you. So there's a lot of things that these SMEs can do for you, and it is free of charge. Jim, would you like to talk about your new venture for the residents of Bluefield? He's turning his microphone on, so hang on.
Okay. Faith and Savannah did some homework back in the winter that of 85 mom and pop businesses they looked at in the city, 43% didn't have a website. They were using social media marketing or other avenues. And of the ones that did have a website, 36 to 39% needed an update. They were static kind of thing. And so we applied for a grant and we received it, and we're out for proposals for designers and then also for businesses. If you're physically located in the city, this first round is for businesses physically in the city. There will be 5 that will get a e-commerce website. 10 will get a brand new informational static website, and 10 will get an update to their existing website. And so that's part of our COVID recovery. Eventually, we're hoping we can secure funding to expand that out into the region to make sure people, have a very good website. Savannah and Faith will be leading training in that in the beginning on how to map out your site. Just because I like it does not mean my customers are going to like it. So looking at photographs, content, things like that. And so trying to have that done up front, and then when the consultant comes in, they can go ahead and start building the sites. And so be training and programs with that. So I'm excited about that, but it was very interesting that 43% of the businesses they looked at did not have a website. And today, if nothing else that COVID's taught us about is through Zoom and other technologies and websites, that's important in marketing your business. And so we're trying to help our businesses fix that problem.
And again, that's for the residents of Bluefield. My program is for anybody in the state of West Virginia. Last thing on websites is make sure that whoever does your website design registers you with Google, Bling, Yelp, TripAdvisor, all of those different agencies that will help you get recognized. Any questions? Okay. We've come to the point in the whole workshop that we're going to allow Region 1 now to get in and tell about their programs. Jason Roberts is with us. He's the executive director of Region 1. Jason is a good guy. great to work with, really cares about the businesses in his area. And Jason, if you're ready and you want to share your screen, Faith.
Will
You-
do.
you can
Thanks.
start sharing
Thanks
it.
for the intro, Harold. Let me
Okay.
get mine going here. Okay, can everyone see the presentation for our revolving loan program?
Yes.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. As Harold said, my name is Jason Roberts, and also I have Jeff Johnson on the meeting as well. We are with the Region 1 Planning and Development Council. And I'm really glad that Harold and Jim are doing these workshops, because I know that if you're a small business and you're trying to start something from scratch, it's horrible not knowing where to go and who to turn to. So I will say that we work with a lot of agencies and a lot of communities. But if you guys are in Mercer County and in Bluefield, you all are set, because you've got people that you can, walk into the office and talk to them and actually get a lot of services provided. So we're also honored to be here to talk about our revolving loan programs. Just a little bit about Region 1. What are we? We are a unit of local government, and we cover the counties and municipalities in McDowell, Mercer, Monroe, Raleigh, Summers, and Wyoming counties. There are 11 regional councils in West Virginia. Every state has them, but we've been around since the early 70s. And historically, we have focused on infrastructure, physical infrastructure, water and sewer infrastructure. Broadband development has been a big emphasis of Region 1 for several years now. We also have a transportation planning component. We have done a lot of geographic information systems or computerized mapping for 25, 30 years, somewhere around there, even before I showed up. And we also have an economic development component, as most regional councils do. But the bulk of our work has always been water and sewer development, but we do work hand in hand with the SBDC and our economic development partners for small business development, preparation of industrial sites, things like that. Because we're kind of all over the place in what we do, we also have partnerships or affiliations with other entities. We are one half of what called Regional Optical Communications. That is a nonprofit entity that does a lot of broadband planning. Those responsibilities are through Region 4 PDC and Clay, Calhoun, Roane, and Braxton County. We are one half of the Fayette Raleigh Metropolitan Planning Organization, and we serve as what's referred to as a local development district for the Appalachian Regional Commission, and also as an economic development district for the U.S. Economic Development Administration within the Department of Commerce. And the USEDA is really the primary funding source for what we're going to talk about today, our revolving loan fund programs. We actually have two. We have the traditional RLF, and then we have the CARES Act RLF. And we call it the traditional because it was the only one we had until the CARES Act came out. But the traditional revolving loan fund was funded primarily through the USEDA and several financial institutions about 30 years ago. Historically, that loan program was open only to businesses that were ineligible for conventional financing, basically because they were too risky, didn't have enough collateral, things like that. So we were kind of the last stop, to be honest. If you wanted to start a business, we were one of the last options for financing. However, we recently defederalized that. USEDA gave up their interest in all of the, I guess you could call them legacy revolving loan programs. USEDA, any put money into something, they have an endpoint on when they're going to give up their federal interest. Maybe 25 years, maybe 30 years, maybe 5 years. Depends on what they're doing, but they really never had an end date for the revolving loan programs. So they recently came to all of the RLF recipients and asked us if we wanted to defederalize that, and we did. However, we hope to take that money, whatever we have left in that, and use it as match for a new EDA recapitalization of loan program. The caveat with the traditional RLF, in addition to being ineligible for conventional financing, the business must be located within Region 1. Any one of those 6 counties, that's fine. You have to be within Region 1. And the loan review committee, Jeff and I are kind of the conduit, primarily Jeff. We just provide the application. We perform the administrative functions of the RLF program, but we do not vote. The loan review committee is comprised of local bankers and local economic development officials. Our EDA, like Jim is a Bluefield EDA. He's on the loan review committee. Mercer EDA, they have a seat. So all of our EDA partners have a seat on that loan review committee. The easiest thing, and it's really been a godsend to a lot of startups, is the CARES Act RLF that we just got awarded, I guess, last year, mid last year, late last year. And that was part of the CARES Act package that came out nationwide. And the CARES Act program is open to any business or startup that self-identifies as being COVID impacted. Again, that business must be located within Region 1. And the same loan review committee for the traditional RLF also serves as the loan review committee for the CARES Act. And what's neat about the CARES Act is if it's a startup, you may be somebody that wanted to start a business, but when COVID hit, you couldn't do it. You didn't have the capital resources to invest in starting a business. So that may have delayed you for a year or so. We have people, I know that Jim and Harold work with people that have suffered from that, or you may be a business that has been in existence for 15 years, but you had to lay off staff. You couldn't get product to sell because of supply chain issues. So essentially, if COVID really impacted you, that opens you up to eligibility to apply for the CARES Act funding. And that is really the easiest route to get some financing. If you've been impacted, that's the way we're going to herd you, because it is less stringent. You don't have to prove that you are ineligible for conventional financing. Excuse me, but it also has a ticking clock on it. We have that funding is only available for a few years. So we're really trying to get that out as quickly as we can to help our communities recover from the economic impact of COVID. Regardless of which one of those pots of funding you want to apply to, or we kind of push you into, there are several things that you will need to do. The first and foremost, you need to work with Harold and get a solid business plan. If people come to it, and we have this, people come and say, well, I'm not sure what I want to do. I would like to get some money to do something. Maybe I'll rent a place and I may sell some trinkets, and I also may, turn it into a bed and breakfast, and maybe some apartments, maybe also show some movies on the weekend. If you're all over the place, that's a bad sign. So that before you even, come inquiring about this, you need to have already been in contact and either have a business plan that was you've worked up in partnership with Harold, or you're in the process of, and you're pretty far along in. So you need the solid business plan. You need financial statements, what of your existing business, your personal financial statements if you're a startup. More than likely, you're going to be asked to give a personal guarantee, even if your business is a corporation or a partnership. A lot of that goes back to the fact that if you're a startup, you may not have anything from the business side that serves as sufficient collateral. So you may have to give a personal guarantee for your programs. You're going to have some pro forma cash flows to demonstrate the ability to service the loan. Again, you can't just say, none of us can sit down and say, well, I'm pretty sure it's going to work. I've got a good gut feeling. Well, that doesn't cut it. Even if we are kind of the last stop for financial security there, you have to have some way to prove that this is solid. And all of that goes back to working with Harold and Jim on your business plans. And then you also have to have copies of your tax returns, federal tax returns from the last 3 years. So one of the first things everyone asks is what are the loan terms going to be? The maximum term is 240 months with real estate. If it's real estate as security, without real estate security, it's a 60-month loan term. You can put your equipment, inventory, accounts receivable, all of those may be used as security. The interest rate is 2% below New York Prime. If New York Prime falls below 4%, then the interest rate of the RLF becomes 0.75% of prime. And then you also, there's going to be a personal guarantee and a UCC one with blanket lien that we're going to request. Long story short, we're really easy to work with. We are really accommodating. You know, Jeff understands that obviously if you're starting a business, there are going to be a lot of barriers. The USCDA, the funders, the banks, they understand that there are going to be a lot of barriers to a startup or a business that is COVID impacted. So we'll work with you and do whatever we can. However, we do have to do our due diligence to make sure that those funds are protected as best we can. The way we actually get the information from you, let's say, you know, you talk to Jim and Harold and they send you in our direction, they will send you, or Jeff will actually send you a link to our digital revolving loan fund application. So most of this is actually required for completion. If it's got the little red asterisk, that means you have to put all of this in, because this is really expediting the loan review process, making it a lot easier on you and us. And it's a pretty lengthy application. I'm sure most loan programs are. The one thing I will say is there's no way to put this in and save it and then go back. So what we always urge people to do is just type all their information into a Word document, save that. And then when you've got it ready and you have all the attachments ready, then you can just copy and paste, upload the attachments and be on your way. So you do have to do a fair amount of legwork prior to submitting the RLF application. And that's perfectly fine. You know, if you're committed, and I'm sure you are, or else you wouldn't be getting formal training. If you're committed, I'm sure you'll be willing to do it. But so what we do is we gather all this information, you hit submit, and then Jeff then disseminates it to the loan review committee, and they vote yay or nay. Usually what they will do is, if it's a nay vote, they will provide us feedback. And then that's when Jeff will go back, talk to you, put you and Harold back together, and Harold can help you work through any deficiencies that the loan review committee may have expressed concerns over. So there's our loan application. Again, it's got upload slots for anything and everything that's required. The rest of it is just text. And again, it's a pretty lengthy application, but that's okay. So that's digital. It's easy to work on. Here's the contact information for both Jeff and I. Again, Jeff is he's the banker of the two. He can answer all the questions. And I know this was kind of short and sweet, but I really wanted to hit the highlights of that, and then open it up for questions or comments. And I don't know if Harold or Jim, if you will be able to kind of facilitate those. Jeff is on the line as well. But before we get to the very last part, I wanted to see if there are any questions or comments on either of our revolving loan fund programs. The other thing I'll say, Harold, before you take off is, we have one that obviously our programs are limited to Region 1, but Wyoming County EDA has a multitude of revolving loan programs as well. A lot of theirs are eligible statewide. So if by chance you're not located physically in Region 1, I may be able to go to Wyoming County EDA. But Harold, thanks for the opportunity to go over our programs. Are there any from anybody?
in working, I think I've had, what, 2 or 3 loans gotten approved through the CARES Act. It is a process. Most of those questions are answered during the business planning process. So even though there's a lot of different sections to their application, like I said, your answers are actually in the business plan and the cash flows and profit and loss that we put together. So most of those questions are put together as you're doing that kind of thing. And so don't stress about it. Just because it's long, don't mean a thing. We'll get it taken care of.
Jason, why don't you, I think you all done a floral business recently and some others. Give them a couple examples of the type of projects that you've done recently with the loan program.
Well, I'll go over the couple that I know of. We've done a florist. We have done a bakery. We have done some manufacturers within the region, some people that do actual straight up manufacturing for extractive industries. Trying to think, I'm drawing a blank. Jeff will have to kind of pitch in and help me out there. I will say, following up on what Harold said, the people that get denied for the loans are people that have not worked with Jim and Harold. I know that for a fact, because they come in and it's kind of a spray and pray. They just throw a little bit of everything in there and trying to grab some money, and it doesn't work out. So I don't know if Jeff's on, if he wants to chime in, but yeah, it's really open to everything. We have people that do retail. We have people that are service providers. We have manufacturers. So it's really good for just about anything. And Jeff, you have anything you want to add there? You're on mute, Jeff. We can see the bottom of your chin, but we can't hear you.
Hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. The only other businesses I can think of that we've approved the restaurants, but they haven't borrowed the money yet. They're waiting for renovations on the building they'll be in. And we approved housing. It was sort of like a bed and breakfast or something along that line for the Hatfield McCoy trails. And they're up and running and been quite busy, actually. So far for the CARES Act loan fund, we have everybody's paid very well and the businesses seem to be doing pretty good. So it's been a success story so far, knock on wood.
FYI, I may have a RV park coming your way and possibly an ATV repair shop coming your way.
Okay.
We've got a question here, Jason.
For the CARES Act revolving loan fund, do you have to provide justification for the self-identification of COVID impact? Or do you just have to just say yourself that you self-identify as being COVID impacted?
Could you hear that question, Jason?
I think I did. Yeah, you can, it's a little bit of each. We just need some sort of statement and some explanatory statement. I think if you just say something like, well, my business suffered X number of loss, X dollars of lost revenue, had to lay people off, whatever. If you're a startup, most of the time there's no way to gauge that. So in that point, we just ask you to put something in writing stating that, you were delayed with your startup because of maybe your personal finances were impacted. And so you didn't have enough money to put into the startup, the business side of it, or because of the shutdowns, you couldn't find access to, maybe the Charleston to go to the Secretary of State's office. I think we're pretty accommodating with that, and USCDA is pretty accommodating. So we just need something from you certifying, that you were and why. There's no really official form or anything that you have to go through, but usually we just add in the form of a letter or an email to that effect. But it will go into the project file. So we're pretty accommodating. Hopefully that answers it.
Yes, thank you.
And one of the things we do, part of what I think our role is not to rubber stamp every project. If somebody comes in and talks to either one of us or the folks at Region 1 and said, you know what, I know what kind of business would be very successful in this area. It's a typewriter repair shop. We're going to talk that person off the ledge, because a lot of times, if you remember in that first slide that I covered, how much are you willing to lose? and how much are you willing to spend? We don't want to see anybody take their life savings and borrow money knowing that it's their business is doomed to fail from the beginning. So a lot of times we'll go back and ask a lot of questions. If you're around me very much, you'll see that I ask questions. It's not that I'm negative on the project, but I want people to think about what you're going to do. And there's other resources that we have. We have our My Own Business. We partner with My Own Business Institute with Santa Clara University. We have online classes from everything from your business planning to marketing, e-commerce, vertical integration, all kind of classes. Matter of fact, we're talking with Rod Gillespie with us today about maybe him and some others having a insurance training at some time. What kind of insurance do I need? How much do I need? And things like that in covering your business. But our goal is to be a resource for you. Harold does a good job. He's mobile and he covers how many counties now?
4 right now.
4 counties, but he's here in Bluefield a lot. He uses our space here sometimes. We want to set you up for success. But if you can't do a business plan and you can't fill out that loan application, maybe you need to have a second thought about whether you really want to do this or not. Because those are questions you should be able to answer. For example, you need to have an elevator pitch. That's your little 2-minute speech and different things like that. You've got to do business storytelling and all that because it's an all improvisation. Unless you're creating a hobby, if this is a business, then you got to be prepared for that. Any other questions, Faith, that has anybody dropped in the chat or anything?
Let me follow up on something Jim said there real quick. There was one client in particular that I had worked with individually, Jim had worked with individually, and I think even Jason had worked with individually, and none of us could get through to the client. And then we performed what we called an intervention, where all 3 of us sat down in a room and for 2 hours tried to convince that client to get themselves on track, to get themselves focused on what they were trying to do. And I'm not sure we were successful, but that's the type of services we provide. If I can't get through to you and say, this is what you really need to do, if we think you're messing up, then we'll bring in Jim. If Jim and I can't get through to you, we'll bring in Jason. If all 3 of us can't get in through to you, then maybe there's no hope for you. But we try, we work with you, we do the best we can, get you the best advice. I tell everybody when I first meet them, I don't know all the answers, but that doesn't mean somebody else does know the answer. I mean, I'll find that person. I will work with whoever I need to work with to get you in the best position that you need to be in.
Following up on that same story, that I was standing up here smiling, you couldn't see me on the camera. That person wanted to start a local manufacturing business. He wanted to do some things up in Michigan for cleaning up the lakes there. And I mean, it was just all over the place. And then come to find out he had a couple $1,000s. That's not going to work. And I'm not being disrespectful to that individual at all. They even applied to be a tenant in a commercialization station and lease 8,000 square feet of space. And I told him, I said, I'm not going to approve that application. And you need to be working at your kitchen table somewhere in a small space and scale to that. I've seen people that will go out, they'll get their business license and immediately rent space, and they're not ready for either. And then all of a sudden they've got that dead expense of rent every month. So you need to be methodical in what you do. And again, I'm not trying to be negative. We just want you to apply that carpenter's rule. You measure twice, you cut it once. But I had forgot about that. And if Jason's still with us, I'm sure he remembers that as well. And
Yeah, I remember that very well.
that's a long story, but I don't know that we helped the gentleman. We tried to be respectful, but honest in what he's doing. I said, you've got some decent ideas, but you need to start with one and then expand to the others. But it's hard to do manufacturing here and working up in Michigan on the lakes. That's not a day commute, kind of thing. So his business plan was flawed. Any other questions or comments? You look like you want to.
No, I'm just listening.
Okay.
Can we get Jason to scroll up?
Jason, can you scroll up on your screen so everybody can see the survey
Zoom out a little bit.
or zoom out there a little bit? We always encourage folks to take the survey. Let us know how we're doing, what your needs are. We also backfill a lot of this information to look at what other training opportunities we need to do, and we provide information to Intuit, which is one of our partners. We've had various classes with them on QuickBooks, other things like that. They've also got a program that will get you information on, and it's to where they pick a local business in the region, and then they provide technical support. This past year, it was Bluefield Inn, which is Kit McCarthy. And so if you are a QuickBooks user and they can step in and help you through getting set up and other things, and it's a free assistance. So very soon we'll be pushing out something on our social media about that. But if you don't mind, take the survey. Harold, any closing?
We're going to try to get you the slides from the presentation. I know my set will be available for everybody. And also I will give you some handouts. I'll send you an email with some handouts on website design, accountants, some other things that we've put together. Also in corporations. I handed the people who came today, I handed those some stuff about incorporations. So we'll get you some stuff. You'll hear from us in the future, and I hope I hear from you. Thank you guys for attending.
If we can do anything, please let us know, and appreciate your time.